The alien ship drifted in low orbit over Earth, invisible to human radar but humming with quiet urgency. Deep in its medical bay, lined with glowing diagnostic panels and sterile blue light, Medic Officer Talzin hovered over a containment unit. Inside, something thrashed faintly beneath the translucent barrier. "This is far worse than we feared," Talzin said, his voice low and mechanical as he tapped his upper limb against the data console. "Cellular degeneration at 30% increase per Earth hour. The pathogen is replicating beyond expected parameters." Across from him, Chief Epidemiologist Virek adjusted the scanning filters, watching the virus's structure unfold in vivid green holograms. "It's mutating faster than any known biological agent. We need to initiate planetary bio-quarantine protocol. No life form from Earth should be cleared for transport." "Too late for that," Talzin muttered. A soft alarm chimed. "Containment breach?" Virek's panels flashed red. Talzin swiveled around. "No, it's the Earthling. The one we rescued from the crash site." In the adjacent room, through a reinforced observation window, a human man sat on the edge of a medical cot, shirtless, pale, and visibly sick but not dying. He was blowing his nose into a square of synthetic cloth, making a honking sound that made Talzin flinch. "Why," Virek whispered, "is he not liquefying like the test organisms?" The man coughed, cleared his throat, and croaked, "You guys got any orange juice?" Talzin tilted his head. "Orange." The man looked up through bloodshot eyes. "Vitamin C. Good for colds." "Colds," Virek repeated like a curse. "This is a Class 6 amorphovirus. It ate through our test samples in 23 seconds. The man sniffled and shrugged. "Yeah, I don't know what that means. I just got a slight cold." His name was Warren Whitlow, and he had survived the crash of his expedition shuttle on return from the Mars Orbital Research Array. The alien vessel had intercepted his escape pod, scanned him for injuries, and brought him aboard. That was 3 days ago, and since then, Talzin had watched in stunned horror as Warren's body adapted to a virus that should have liquefied his organs. "Warren," Talzin said through the intercom, "how do you feel?" "Bit of a headache. Nose won't stop running. I sneezed 15 times in a row this morning. Pretty sure I pulled something in my neck." He leaned back, blowing his nose again. "But hey, I've had worse. You do not appear to be dying." "Not planning to." Talzin turned to Virek. "We need to run a full molecular resilience profile. There must be something in his biology, some kind of resistance gene." Virek hesitated. "Or, what if this disease is only lethal to our physiology, not his?" Talzin froze. "Meaning?" he asked. "The virus may have originated on Earth." That realization prompted immediate escalation. Within an hour, the containment deck was sealed, and Warren was transferred to a new facility, one built to withstand Category 9 biohazards. He was not pleased. "You're putting me in a shipping container now," he shouted as 2 medics guided him into a transparent chamber. "Guys, I told you, it's just a cold. I don't need a cage, I need soup." Virek paced outside the chamber, reviewing Warren's test results. His immune system shows elevated white cell activity, but no signs of internal hemorrhage, necrosis, or organ collapse. His oxygen levels are stable, Talzin added, and his appetite has increased. He consumed double rations this cycle. Warren tapped the glass. "Yeah, and I'd eat triple if you guys would bring me something hot. You got chili? Chili's great for colds." "No," Talzin replied. Warren sighed, slumping down inside the chamber. "You people got the bedside manners of a DMV." After 48 more hours of testing, scanning, and blood draws, the results were impossible to ignore. Warren was not only surviving the virus, he was fighting it off like it was a common seasonal bug. Virek stared at the latest data printout. He's producing antibodies. Fast. Efficient. His immune system is adapting in real time. Talzin looked through the glass. Warren was now doing push-ups on the floor. "Incredible," Virek muttered. "Unnatural," Talzin corrected. Warren sat up, panting slightly. "You guys done poking me? Or am I going to be breakfast for your diagnostic machines again?" "We need more samples," Virek said. "You've already taken enough blood to fill a kiddie pool." Talzin approached the chamber. "Warren, we believe the virus originated on your planet. Your species may have encountered it before. Perhaps it mutated from an older strain." "That'd track," Warren said, rubbing his nose. "I get something like this every winter. Sinus pressure, coughing, general misery. You just tough it out." Virek blinked. "You endure this regularly?" "Yeah, It's called a cold. You guys never had one? Talzin shook his head. No organism on our world could survive this strain. Warren frowned. Wait, so you're saying this thing kills you? Instantly. Then why the hell did you bring me aboard? Talzin hesitated. We believed you were infected with an unknown bioweapon. Well, it's not a weapon, Warren said. It's a nuisance. Your resilience is. Fascinating, Virek said. Warren rolled his eyes. No, it's miserable. I feel like garbage. My head's throbbing, my back hurts, and I'd trade a limb for some decongestant and a hot shower. Virek turned to Talzin. We should return him to Earth. He poses no threat. Talzin looked back at the human. And yet, he survived what we could not. We must understand how. Warren stood and walked to the glass. You want to understand? I'll tell you. Humans get sick. A lot. We've built up tolerances over thousands of years. Flu, colds, stomach bugs. Most of us just keep going to work anyway. Virek tilted his head. Why? Because life doesn't stop when you feel like crap. You push through. Talzin whispered. That's insane. No, Warren said. That's humanity. The following day, Virek and Talzin convened a council of interspecies medics aboard the Central Galactic Health Station. The virus had begun to spread through equipment, biological samples, even recorded data. 3 species had already gone into full lockdown. Panic was setting in. Talzin presented the footage of Warren jogging in place inside the containment cell. This is the infected human, Talzin said. He has had the virus for 7 Earth days. He has not only survived, but improved. A Tharn medic gurgled in disbelief. What treatment was administered? None. He requested soup. We were unable to comply. Another alien, from the Ilexan sector, leaned forward. What is soup? Virek interjected. Irrelevant. The point is, his immune system is naturally combating the virus. We must study this resilience. Or, the Tharn said, we must eliminate all Earth-based pathogens from the galactic registry permanently. Burn the planet if necessary. Warren's image froze on the screen mid-sneeze. Talzin sighed. He calls it a slight cold. The room erupted into chaos. Back aboard the alien ship, Warren awoke to find his door unlocked. 2 medics entered, one holding a tray. What's this? He asked, sitting up. We synthesized your requested soup, using molecular scans from your digestive memory. He blinked. You guys scanned my stomach? Yes. He took the bowl, sniffed it. Well, smells like chicken noodle. Let's see how it tastes. He took a sip, paused, and nodded. Not bad. Bit salty. Virek stepped in. Warren Whitlow, we are authorizing your return to Earth. You are no longer a threat. Warren looked up. You're not going to cut more holes in me first? No, he stood slowly. Good. I'd like to go home now. Talzin approached. You have shown us something we did not expect. Yeah? What's that? That fragility can be a form of strength. Warren grinned without smiling. Nah, it just means we get sick a lot. He was escorted to the shuttle bay, still sniffling, still coughing. As he stepped into the re-entry capsule, Virek handed him a container. What's this? Warren asked. Soup. For the journey. He nodded. Thanks. As the hatch sealed and the pod detached, Warren leaned back and muttered to himself, slight cold my ass. The capsule burned through Earth's upper atmosphere, trailing fire and sneeze echoes, as the galaxy reeled from the revelation that the deadliest virus in known space was just another Tuesday for the human immune system. But Warren wasn't thinking about immunity or interstellar diplomacy. He was thinking about hot showers, NyQuil, and never, ever accepting a ride from aliens again. The re-entry capsule slammed into the Nevada desert just before dawn, skidding across a dry lake bed and throwing up a rooster tail of dust that caught the attention of a nearby weather drone. A retrieval team in unmarked fatigues arrived 16 minutes later. By then, Warren had already kicked open the emergency hatch and was standing outside in his socks, shielding his eyes from the rising sun. I'm not answering any more questions unless someone brings me socks, coffee, and a ride to civilization, he said while rubbing the base of his neck. The team, trained to handle everything from radioactive cargo to crash survivors with head trauma, didn't quite know what to make of him. One of them tossed him a silver foil blanket and a bottle of water. Warren took the water, ignored the blanket, and used it to wipe his face. Where's your debriefing center these days? Still in that underground bunker with the flickering lights and vending machines from the 70s. The commanding officer, A clean-shaven woman with a laminated badge that said nothing useful nodded toward the transport. You'll be taken to the biomedical facility in Utah. Our analysts are waiting. No one waiting with pancakes? Okay, fine. By late afternoon, he was seated in a crisp, windowless room with a single table, a biometric scanner embedded where a coaster might have been. A man in a white lab coat entered, followed by two uniformed officers with unreadable expressions. The lab coat sat, cleared his throat, and placed a tablet on the table. You were exposed to an unknown pathogen in orbit. We received fragments of the alien transmission during your descent. Warren leaned back in his chair. Let me save you time. It's a virus. We've had it before. Your average human immune system can handle it just fine. Unless you're, like, 90 and already half falling apart. The man blinked. We're aware it didn't kill you. That's what concerns us. Concerned? I sneezed on an alien, and he almost fainted. You're welcome, by the way. I probably just saved the galaxy with my mucus. One of the officers stepped forward. You're being glib. No, I'm being hungry. This is what I sound like when I haven't eaten since orbit. The lab coat ignored that. The pathogen structure is unfamiliar to Earth's databases, but your immune system mounted a response within hours. We want to know how. Lots of exposure, bad childhood hygiene, public school cafeterias. You build immunity the hard way. We're running your blood through every comparative model we have. So far, nothing explains the resistance. Well, maybe I'm just a very average miracle. They kept him under observation for another 36 hours. Blood draws every 4 hours. Temperature logs. Respiratory scans. At one point, they made him jog in place while hooked to a portable EKG. He sneezed halfway through and stopped moving. Okay, now I'm just doing this for your entertainment. At hour 42, a new figure entered. She wore no lab gear, just a slate blue suit with a subtle pin on her lapel. Her hair was tied back, her shoes clicked softly as she walked, and she didn't introduce herself. You're the one from the alien ship, she said. Warren, halfway through a sandwich, nodded. Unless there's another guy with my face sneezing in their airlock. She remained standing. They sent a data capsule after your return. It contained medical records, sensor readings, and a recorded council session. Let me guess. They're not thrilled I'm still breathing. They're not sure whether to classify you as a biological weapon or a diplomatic incident. Well, I've been called worse. Once got food poisoning at a Greek buffet and took out a whole wedding. Same vibe. She didn't laugh. We need to talk about what you might have brought back. That virus? You've got it under quarantine, right? I coughed into enough filters to build a second moon. This isn't about containment. It's about perception. You exposed a vulnerability. Not in us. In them. He set down the sandwich. They're scared. They're unfamiliar with the concept of enduring illness. For them, infection means immediate systemic failure. Your casual survival reads like a threat. Because I didn't die? Because you didn't even slow down. Warren rubbed his temple. I had a fever. I wasn't exactly jogging laps around their ship. You did push-ups in a sealed chamber and demanded chili. That was boredom. And hunger. And I didn't get any chili. She folded her arms. They interpret resilience as aggression. You made them question their own biology. That kind of existential doubt can spiral. He looked at her. They're going to retaliate? They're going to study. But some of their neighbors may not stop there. So what? I accidentally started an intergalactic arms race over a head cold? Possibly. He blew a slow breath through his nose. That's just great. Later that evening, a technician escorted him to a private suite still underground, still without windows, but with a real bed and a working shower. He stood under the stream for 20 minutes, letting warm water pound his neck and steam fill the air. When he emerged, a tray of food waited on the desk, grilled chicken, rice, and a glass of orange juice. He sat, picked up the glass, and stared at it. Vitamin C diplomacy, he muttered. At exactly midnight, his room lights dimmed automatically. He ignored it, lying on the bed with one arm over his eyes. Sleep didn't come. Instead, his mind replayed fragments of the ship, the cold lights, the medic's unblinking stares, the way they backed away when he coughed. He remembered one of them shorter than the others, skin like translucent jade holding up a diagnostic wand and trembling when Warren sneezed mid-scan. You're contaminating the air, the alien had said. It's already in the air, Warren had replied. That's how colds work. Their translator had buzzed, trying to make sense of the tone. Now, back on Earth, he felt something else creeping in, not illness, but a question he hadn't let himself consider. What if this wasn't just about biology? What if the real danger was cultural? 2 days later, he was flown to a secure conference center in Colorado, where a round table of experts from various agencies waited. They all had files. Some had tablets. A few had questions clearly rehearsed. Warren sat with a thermos of tea and tried not to sneeze. Mr. Whitlow, one of the analysts, began, "We've reviewed the footage from the alien vessel. We're interested in your behavioral responses." To what? To confinement. To medical procedures. To limited communication. I wasn't thrilled, if that's what you're asking. You complied. You joked. You requested soup. I was trying not to lose my mind. That's what interests us. You defaulted to humor. Why? Because screaming tends to scare people. Joking just annoys them. Another expert leaned forward. Do you believe that played a role in the aliens' reaction to you? I think they thought I was insane. Did that perception serve you? He frowned. You're asking if pretending to be casual kept me alive? Essentially. I wasn't pretending. I was exhausted. And sick. And confused. And maybe a little annoyed that nobody seemed to understand that a runny nose isn't lethal. The first analyst tapped her notes. They're requesting another sample. He blinked. Of what? Your mucus. He laughed once, dryly. Tell them to come to Denver in January. I'll give them a bucket. The meeting dissolved into procedural chatter. Warren stood, excused himself, and walked the corridor until he found a quiet viewing deck. Mountains stretched across the horizon, capped with snow. He leaned on the railing. A tall man in a faded jacket approached from the shadows. You're going to be famous, the man said. I'd rather be left alone. Not an option. They think you're the first step in a new evolutionary model. I'm just a guy who didn't die. The man nodded. That's exactly what scares them. Warren turned back to the mountains, sipping the last of his tea. Then maybe next time, I'll lie down and look sicker. They'd know. Yeah, Warren muttered. They always do. It was noon by the time Warren stepped into the briefing dome atop the facility's upper tier, now cleared of all personnel except for 3 alien delegates and a single translator rig, humming faintly from where it hung above the table. The air smelled faintly of ozone and disinfectant. He was wearing clean clothes, now Earth clothes. Jeans, hoodie, sneakers. The hoodie had a faded logo of a minor league baseball team he couldn't remember supporting. The aliens had arrived an hour earlier, their ship docked with the outer ring. None of them had spoken since landing. They waited in chairs adjusted awkwardly for their size, each posture rigid in a different way. Warren dropped into the seat opposite, exhaling as he leaned back. I'm told you wanted to see me not through glass this time. The translator buzzed twice before interpreting. We requested direct observation. Observation requires interaction. You could have just called. The one in the middle, broad-chested, pale green skin with a layered bone crest across the scalp, stared at him without blinking. Its eyes were glossy, like polished stone. The translator hesitated before adding, the council requires a human demonstration. You are the only viable specimen. Specimen, Warren muttered. That's charming. You know where I'm from. That's what we call frogs in a middle school science lab. The alien to the left, smaller and covered in a fine membrane that shimmered faintly when it moved, leaned forward. Explain what occurred inside your respiratory system after contamination. You mean when I got the virus? Yes. I sneezed. Coughed. Felt like garbage. Started producing mucus. Fever. Headaches. Same thing that happens every January. My body kicked in like it always does. The translator hesitated again. Your internal systems retaliated independently? They did what they're built to do. The largest alien tilted its head. We do not possess autonomous immunological aggression. We require external intervention for pathogenic threats. Well, Warren said, that sounds inconvenient. There was a pause. No one moved. You asked for a demonstration, he continued. What does that mean, exactly? The membrane-skinned one gestured. A flat panel extended from the table, revealing a shallow recess. Inside was a sealed ampoule, glowing faintly purple. You want me to touch that? He asked. It contains the Mutanex strain, what your kind calls the virus. We have neutralized its airborne properties. It cannot spread beyond contact. He stared at the ampoule, then at the trio. You want me to get infected again so you can watch me get over it? We have no other reference model. That's because everyone else dropped dead. Correction. Everyone else disintegrated. Warren sighed and rubbed his neck. Do I at least get a pillow this time? A human medic entered, placed a biometric monitor on the table, and left without a word. Warren strapped it onto his wrist and looked down at the ampoule. All right, let's get educational. He cracked the seal. A soft hiss escaped. The smell was oddly sweet, like damp leaves and chlorine. He dipped a cotton swab into the ampoule and dabbed it into his nostril, then leaned back. Now we wait. The translator clicked. Your demeanor during contamination remains unchanged. I had cereal this morning. That helps. 20 minutes passed. Warren began to sniffle. He pulled a tissue from the edge of the table and blew his nose. The translator picked up the sound and paused. Is that an expulsion ritual? It's called blowing your nose. It clears the sinuses. Does it assist the immune response? No, it just keeps me from dripping on your furniture. The large alien leaned forward, watching the biometric readout. Your internal temperature has increased by 0.4 degrees. Is this the beginning of systemic failure? No, that's the fever kicking in. You're watching the warm-up act. 2 hours later, Warren had a mild headache, dry mouth, and watery eyes. He looked exactly how he felt, slightly miserable, but nowhere near incapacitated. Heart rate's elevated, he said. Muscles ache. Still upright. Still talking. You guys taking notes? The smallest alien, the one with the membrane, tapped a data node on its wrist. You are actively manufacturing antibodies. Your system is not simply resisting, it is adapting. That's kind of the point. The translator buzzed. Explain. You ever walk into a room and smell something off? And then the next time you walk into that room, you recognize it and know to open a window? The translator paused. This is an analogy. Yeah, my immune system's like that. Except instead of windows, it sends T cells and lymphocytes and whatever else to shut the party down. The bone-crested one tapped the table. You are actively improving while under attack. Welcome to the miracle of being human. By nightfall, Warren was curled on a padded bench in the observation lounge, sipping lukewarm tea from a paper cup. The three aliens remained nearby, still silent. The translator had been powered down after they'd run out of questions. Warren coughed into his elbow. Still alive, he said. The membrane-skinned alien finally turned toward him. Are all humans like you? Nope. Some are better. Some worse. But most of us, yeah. We get sick. We get over it. You do not fear death from infection? Oh, we do. Just not from this. We've got worse stuff. Real killers. Stuff that doesn't give you a runny nose first. The bone-crested one tapped its chest. We do not possess such resilience. If your pathogens escape containment, our species will face extinction. Warren looked up. Then maybe don't go collecting alien snot samples without gloves. The three stood. The translator reignited. You have provided sufficient data. Do I get a prize? You may keep the biometric monitor. Oh, joy. The aliens filed out in silence, leaving him alone with the tea, the tissue box, and the dull ache behind his eyes. The next morning, the medical team cleared him. His temperature normalized, congestion faded, energy returned. No meds, no interventions. Just time and tea. At noon, he stood at the base of the launch pad, watching the alien delegation prepare for departure. The bone-crested one approached. You are cleared of all quarantine restrictions. You will not be monitored further. Well, glad to hear I'm no longer a walking biohazard. You never were. You are, however, living proof of biological unpredictability. I've been called worse. The alien extended a small case. Inside were 3 vials labeled, sealed, and color-coded. What are these? Samples. For Earth's containment vaults. So your kind may study what nearly destroyed ours. Warren took the case and shut it. You're trusting us not to mess this up? We are trusting that you already have. The ship lifted an hour later, disappearing into the sky without ceremony. Warren walked back to the compound, the case under his arm. A technician met him at the door. They're gone. Back to wherever they came from. You all right? Bit of a cough. Nothing soup won't fix. He passed through security, handed over the vials, and signed the release forms without reading them. By late afternoon, he was in a cab headed toward the nearest town with a diner. The driver glanced at him in the mirror. You hear about that virus thing? Some weird outbreak. Warren opened the window. Yeah, I heard. You worried. He looked at the clouds, the road, the endless stretch of dry grass. Nope, he said. Not anymore. And he wasn't. Not because the danger had passed, but because something else had become clear. He hadn't just survived a deadly pathogen. He taught an entire galactic council how to sneeze into the crook of their arm. Which, all things considered, wasn't a bad legacy.